Hi guys, welcome back. This is another bonus video for the Unreal Engine 4 inventory video series. This video we're going to have a look at basically tweaking the stackable item functionality for when we add items to the inventory. We're going to tweak it so that we can specify maximum stackable counts per inventory index. Kind of similar to games like No Man's Sky in terms of inventory management. You can only have a certain quantity of items within one slot. We'll have a look at the logic for setting that up and also handling whether when we pick up an item, if the quantity will spill over to another array index, and we'll see how we can handle that as well. So there's a little bit of setup to do first, and then the actual blueprint coding. There's going to be a lot of quite crazy stuff that we're going to do. It's not going to be too bad. There's a lot that we can kind of copy paste and stuff like that. But just to kind of give you a brief reminder of kind of where we're at the minute, if we open up the first person character, we have our inventory add to inventory function. We get to a point where we check whether an item is stackable or not. If it is stackable, what we do is we run through a for each loop with break. What we do is we check through each inventory element. We look at the item data that exists there. We look at the pickup type and check if that matches the pickup type of the pickup we just collected. If that's true, we set an array element where we basically add the amount to the existing quantity within the current array index. We then refresh inventory, destroy actor, and kind of loop and break the loop out of there. If we didn't find the existing item, then we loop all the way through, and then what we do is we run a check for free slot, and we just basically add the new item to a new slot. So it's a system that works. The only problem with this is that obviously it will let items stack infinitely, which is not really what we want to do with this. So what we're going to do is, let's just close that off. We're going to start in the inventory folder, and we just need to have a look at the item data structure. What we need to add is a new variable, which we're going to call max stack. And we're going to make sure that this is an integer. Once you've done that, we can just save it. And there's a couple of places where we need to adjust our make and break item data structures. We're going to start in the pickups folder and just inside the construction script for our pickups. Now, I'm just going to set this up on the ammo pack because that's one of the few items I've got that is actually stackable. We're going to firstly start by adding a new variable, which we're going to call max stack, and we'll make sure that's an integer, and we're just going to set it out here in the construction script. So we'll add a new pin, we'll set the maximum stack. I'm just going to set mine to 75 for testing purposes, and we'll feed that into the outputs. So compile, just jump back to the construction script and make sure where you're setting your item data that you plug in the max stack. Okay, so that's done for the pickup. Let's have a look at some other places where we'll need to adjust the item data structures. So we're going to jump into the inventory folder and then the inventory widget blueprint. So if we jump into the graph, there's a couple of spots we'll have to change this, mainly in the tossable, the stackable item sections. So we're going to start on the toss stackable item, and we can see here that the max stack just needs to be plugged across into the max stack there. Let's have a look for the use item section. We've got a max stack here which we can plug across to there as well. And I think that's everything in there, so we can compile and save that one. So let's just close out that one, and if we have a look inside the first person character blueprint, let's just look in the add to inventory. The one place that we are going to set it is just down here. So from the false branch, this is where we add an item if it's false, or if we didn't find it in the array, we need to make sure that the max stack is plugged across there as well. And we can now start focusing our attention on this section up here. So we are going to keep a bit of this, but we are also going to tweak what we've got there as well. So first things first, just to get your bearings, we are running from the true output from the can stack check. So if we come up to the top here, we've got our for each loop with break, where we're checking for the item types. We're going to start by just clearing this out from the top here. We will be rebuilding that later on, but we're just going to get it out of the way for now. We also are going to get rid of this set array element and this refresh and destroy actor node here. I'm just going to pull this back over to the right. What we are going to add here though is from the for each loop with break, we're just going to promote this array index output to its own variable because we will be using it quite a lot. So just make sure that you set up all of your execution pins correctly, and we're just going to rename this variable to current index. Okay, so the idea here is that the break item data checks. What it's doing is we're checking to see if the item already exists within our inventory and if it matches what we're picking up. So if it's an ammo pack that we're picking up, do we have an ammo pack already in the inventory which it can stack, and can we add to it? What we also want to check is we want to make sure that the quantity is not equal to the maximum stack, because that's going to allow us to firstly add to the existing stack, but if it's full then we'll create a new stack. So we're going to start by just adding here from the quantity. We want to check if it is not equal, and we're just going to wire in the max stack into there. And we want to check both of these conditions at the same time. So from the top one, we're just going to type in and boolean, just hook the output of that into the condition, and we're going to hook the second one into the second input there. So this will only fire true if both of these conditions are met at the same time. So hook up the true into there, and that's that part taken care of there. So the next part to look at is just down here, where we've done our we've gone through our for each loop break check, and we're now checking to see did we actually find it in the array or not. We've already handled what happens if we return false. We basically just add a new item, but now it's time to check for what happens if we did find the same item in the array. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to check the item that we found in the array, and we want to find out what the amount to fill up the quantity to the maximum amount is. So we're going to grab the game instance, we're going to grab the inventory out of that game instance, and out of the inventory we're going to get a reference. So the index that we want to look at is the current index, and we're going to break our item data from here. So what we'll want to do is we want to see if this is an item that has a particular quantity in, what is the quantity that is required to get it to reach the maximum stack. So what we'll do is here we're going to grab the, we're going to create a new variable first. We're going to create a variable called amount to fill stack, and we'll just create that as an integer and hold down Alt just to pull it out of there. So we can hook up the true value there, and to set the amount to fill stack, what we're going to do is we're going to say the maximum stack minus the current quantity is going to be equal to the amount to fill stack. After we've done that, we're going to check if the adding the object is going to be greater than or less than the maximum stack. If it's going to be less than the maximum stack, then we simply just add whatever the pickup amount is to the current quantity. Dead easy. If the amount to add plus the quantity plus the amount to add is greater than the maximum stack, then we're going to have to look at how we can split the amount to add across multiple array indices. So we're going to get a greater than, integer greater than check. We want to say, is the quantity plus, and we're going to wire in the hit pickup, and we want to get the amount to add. Is the quantity plus that amount, is that going to be greater than the maximum stack? So we're going to pull the maximum stack out from the item data here. So got to be careful here with your connections because things are looping all over the place a little bit here. But what we're doing here is we're checking, is the quantity plus the amount to add greater than the maximum stack? So let's run this into a branch. Okay, so we're going to handle the false output first because it's going to be a little bit easier. It's basically going to be kind of like the setup we had up here originally. We're just going to set array element, and we're going to look at the amount to add plus we'll add it to the quantity that already exists. So from the false branch, we're just going to get ourselves a set array element function node. We want to get the game instance and get the inventory. And we're going to feed the inventory into the target array. The index that we're going to add to is just going to be the current index that we set up earlier. And the amount to add, the item to add is just going to be what we have already inside of the integer, array index, the current index. So we're going to get from the inventory the current index. We're going to do our usual break item data and make item data. So the majority of these are just going to be plugged in across from one another. We do want to leave the quantity until last, but make sure we hook everything else up. The quantity is just going to be adding the amount, the amount to add from our hit pickup. So hit pickup, amount to add. Let's just duplicate this over here, Control W, and just hook that into there and into the quantity. We need to set the item data into the set array element so that we can actually update that index. And once we're done, we can just grab this refresh inventory and destroy actor. Let's just duplicate this over here and wire that in. Okay, so that's that done for the false. For the true, as I mentioned before, it's going to be a little bit more tricky. We're going to have to do a little bit of calculation first. So we're going to firstly start with adding a new integer variable, which we'll call remainder to add. And we're just going to set this up here. So the remainder to add is going to be the hit pickup amount to add, and it's going to be we're going to take away from that the amount to fill stack, and that will leave us with a remainder portion. So hit pickup, the amount to add from that pickup, take away the amount to fill stack, and that will leave us with whatever the remainder is. So it's going to be a fairly similar setup to down here. From the remainder to add, we're going to set array element, and we're firstly going to set the current index basically plus the amount to fill it up to the top. So we can grab these nodes here. We're just going to Control W just to duplicate this. The inventory is going to be the target array. The current index is going to be the index. The item is going to be our usual break item data. make item data. As usual, just hook all of these across here. Maximum stack. So the quantity, we're going to add to the quantity our amount to fill stack. So as usual, make sure you hook the item data into the set array element, and that will basically fill the current stack to its maximum amount. But we still have the remainder to add to deal with here. So what we're going to do is, from the set array element, we're going to run another set array element. But before we can hook up the remaining amount in here, we don't just want to arbitrarily add it to another array index. We have to perform the same check as we do down here to check for our free slot. So we're actually just going to call this function again up here between our set array element. So check for free slot. And just a reminder for what this function does for check for free slot. It's quite similar to finding the same pickup type within the array, the inventory array. We use a for each loop with break to loop through the inventory, and we check to see if there is an item that equals none as its pickup type. We use that none value as a placeholder for empty objects. So if we don't have an item in the array, if we don't have a pickup, then we use the none profile to set that as an empty array index. So if it equals none, then we have found that free slot. We set an integer called free slot to basically be whatever index we found the free slot at. Because we found it, we then loop back and we break the for each loop with break. So we don't have to continue looping through this. The completed check then basically runs into a conditional. Did we find the free slot or not? If we did, then we fire off true. If we didn't, then we fire off false. So back in the add to inventory, we have our output available slot. We're going to run this into a conditional check. And we're going to run the set array element in for the true, but for the false, we'll just run a print string, and we'll say something along the lines of no free slots in inventory. Just as a bit of visual feedback for the player. So for the set array element, it's going to be pretty similar to this, but we're not going to use the current index. We have to use the free index, the free slot that we found from this function here. So we're going to grab the hit pickup first. So let's grab this up here. Get hit pickup. We want to get its item data. So get item data. And we're going to break this item data. We then need to make item data to make a new entry for the array. Again, just hook these all across. We'll leave the quantity to last. And the quantity is just going to be the base quantity value, which is 0, add the remainder to add. And just hook that up into the quantity value there. So this item data can be fed into the item field, and we just need to grab our game instance and get our inventory to hook into the target array. The index to add to, as I mentioned before, is the free slot, because that's why we did this check for free slot function call here. So we set array element, and we need to perform our refresh inventory and destroy the pickup as well. So just hook that into there. I've just copied it from down below, the refresh inventory and destroy actor, and that's pretty much it. So let's give it a test I did mention earlier it was going to look a little bit crazy, but let's give this a little test and see how this works. So I'm just going to compile and save that and just jump into my level. So I've got a whole bunch of pickups here just to test, and for testing purposes I'm just going to set these all to be ammo packs. There we go. So if we play this now, just for some background, each pickup provides 20. We have a max stack of 75. So what we're hoping to achieve here is that if we pick up 4 of these, we should have one index with 75 and another index with 5. So I've picked up 4. Let's just press I on our keyboard, and there we have it. We've got our first index with 75, and we have our second index there with 5. So what we can have a look at now is, if just to test this further, if we actually toss some of these and start picking up some items, let's have a look and see what happens. So if I toss item here, and let's set this, let's just toss 15. Sorry, let's toss yeah, let's toss 20 and see what happens to this one here first. So just going to turn my inventory off there. Let's just grab another one, press I, and you can see that it added it back to that first index array, which is exactly what I wanted it to do. We still have the second one here, and because this is full, if we pick up another pickup, it should add to this index here. So again, let's just go and grab another pickup and press letter I, and you can see that it has done as expected. It's added to this index here rather than creating a new index there. So we'll wrap up there, guys, for this video. I hope you found that informative. Thank you for watching. What we'll have a look at in a future video is to build upon our drag and drop functionality to see how we can merge stacks together. So kind of similar to what we've done today, but a little bit kind of in reverse. Rather than splitting stacks, we can check to see if we can combine stacks together. So thanks again for watching, and keep an eye out for future videos.